Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of our HTML and CSS series. In just 10 minutes, you're gonna build your very first web page using HTML, even if you're never coded in your life. So let's get started. First things first, open your code editor. I'm using VS Code here, you can use whatever you want. If you don't want to bother installing VS Code, which by the way, we already have a dedicated video on this channel for that. Link will be in the video description if you want to check that out. You can also use our Codin compiler, which also supports HTML, CSS, and JS. We also have a new feature called Codin Labs where you can just upload your projects in our website. So if you want to check that out, link will also be in the video description. So very first thing you want to do is make a file. To do that, come here and click on this new file button and name it index.html, which basically means home page of our HTML. So first thing I want you to do is type starting angle bracket and type doc type HTML. So this line right here is basically a tag. What it does is basically tells our HTML web page that we are using HTML5, which is the latest version of HTML. Okay, so now we'll make our most important tag, which is HTML. Okay, so you need a starting HTML tag right here and closing HTML tags. A tag is basically an element that is enclosed in angle brackets. Okay, like these ones right here. This is an opening HTML tag and this is a closing HTML tag. How do we know it? Closing HTML tags usually have / before its name. So basically this is an HTML tag and / HTML tag is the closing HTML tag. So inside this HTML tag, we'll write our head tag like this. So head tag is basically a tag that works behind the scenes. You don't normally see it inside your HTML or the main web page of your HTML website, but it does a lot of things behind the scenes. Okay? For example, what we can do is inside head tag, we can give a title tag. What it does, basically, let's give a title named HTML tutorial. If I do this and go live right here, as you can see, the head or the title of our HTML website becomes HTML tutorial because I give HTML tutorial inside this title tag. So that's the title tag. So let's make it more easier. I'll just make it like this. Now, what we can do is HTML tag basically has two main parts. One is the head tag like this, and another is the body tag. So notice we're coming outside the head tag. We'll give a body tag. So body tag means the elements that are visible on the website. Let's say I write hello here. You can see hello coming or popping up in our HTML website. So this right here is what we called boilerplate code. So what is a boilerplate code? Boilerplate code is basically the code that you have to write, usually writing your HTML or any programming language code, right? When you start off writing HTML, you have to write this much to get started with your HTML website. That is called boilerplate code. Okay, so inside this body tag, what we'll do is give a tag named h1. So h in h1 stands for heading, right? If I write inside these h1 tag, again, this is the opening h1 tag and this is the closing h1 tag, right? Inside this h1 tag right here, I will give a value or a content specifically that we like to say, saying hello world. So if I do that, if I give hello world and save this, as you can see, hello world pops up in the HTML website. So h in h1 means heading, right? And h1 is the biggest size heading. That's why it's called h1. If I try to give h2, here, what I'll do is basically saying, let's say hello world again. As you can see, it is smaller compared to h1. This goes all the way to h6. If I just copy this and paste it here 6 times and change the value saying h3, okay, h4, h5, and h6, the text right here, the hello world, the content hello world, will get smaller and smaller. If I save this, as you can see, they're different sized hello world because you're using different heading tags. Now that we have talked about heading tags, I will cut all of these and keep one, and that says about me, because we'll build a kind of a basic about me page. Okay, so the next tag that we will learn is the paragraph tag. Let's say in your HTML website you want to write a paragraph. There is a dedicated paragraph tag, that is the p tag, which again has opening and closing brackets. As you can see, h1 also has opening and closing, title also has opening and closing, head also has opening and closing, same goes to body and HTML. There are a few exceptions in HTML tag that do not need closing tags. For example, doc type HTML doesn't need a closing tag. Okay, so in paragraph tag you can type some paragraph. Okay, I can type I love coding and I love web development. This is a wonderful experience. Okay, so inside the paragraph tag you type a paragraph. As you can see, it pops up in our HTML website because again we are putting it in the body tag. So this is paragraph tag. Okay, now till here we have talked about two things specifically, right? One is HTML tag and one is how to make your own tags and show them in your HTML website. Now the thing is, when you write a tag and some content inside it and also give a closing tag, this entire thing right here is what we call an HTML element. So if I say an element or HTML element in upcoming videos or in the future, just know that I'm talking about the whole thing. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is the HTML structure and how browser actually puts our HTML tags in our HTML website. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the HTML tree structure. So think of HTML as like a family tree, right? Or a folder inside folder. At the top, we have HTML, which is, again, I said, most important tag in our HTML website because it basically is the parent of all of our HTML tags. So here, HTML tag basically branches out into two main tags, which is head and the body, like in our HTML code. And head also branches out into another tag, which is the title tag, which is inside the head tag again, and head tag is inside the HTML tag, right? Here we have the body tag, which is again one of the two main branches of HTML tag. Here body tag has branched into two tags, which is h1 and paragraph tag, that we use in our HTML code. This can be a lot of HTML tags. After the HTML tag, it basically just normally branches out into two main tags, which again is head and body. But head and body can branch out into different or multiple HTML tags depending upon actual website. And that's it. You just built your very first web page using HTML. We have covered structures, wrote some real code, and also visualized how it all connects like a tree. In the next episode, we are going to add images and links, and your page will finally start to feel like a real website. If this video helped, go ahead and leave a like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. And hey, drop a comment if you coded alongside with me or got stuck. I'm here for you. See you again in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the HTML and CSS Crash Course. In the episode 1, you made your first web page. Now it's time to make it pop using images and links. This is where your page starts to feel alive. Let's get into it. So in the last video, we learned about tags and we also learned how to print stuff in our HTML website. We learned there are opening tags and as well as closing tags. And if you write something between them, it does display in the respective HTML element, right? So for this video, I'll give the title as episode 2 because this is our second episode, right? After that, in this video, we'll only learn about images and links, okay? To keep it very, very simple. So inside the body tag, as you know, I've already said this in the episode 1, that whatever thing you write onto the body tag does come into the HTML website, okay? All the visible things that you see in a site are kept inside the body tag. So here, what I'm gonna do is, so first I want you to pick an image that you want to upload, right? First, go to Google and let's search for your favorite picture. I'll just search cats, why not, right? So, oh, cute cat. Okay, so I'll pick this cat as image. So right click on this and click on copy image address, right? We're basically just importing into our HTML website using the link of this specific image. So if I come here and start an angle bracket that says img, right? Img is a tag that is used to upload image on HTML website. So if I do angle bracket and image, and if there is an image, there has to be a source for image, right? So for that, we use an attribute called source, right? Now, if I go equals to, and after equals to, you need to give a double quotes. And inside the source, before that, close the angle bracket. And inside this source, we'll paste the link. And if I save it, the cat image will pop up in our HTML website. So that is how you add images in your HTML website, okay? So you might be thinking, there are two tags in a same element, right? It's not what you think. So img here is our tag, okay, is our main tag. src is an attribute of img. So in HTML, there are tags as well as attributes that do something related to that HTML tag. So in this case, we have the image tag or img tag, which again, if there is an image, it has to be, or it has to come from a source, right? So src basically handles the source of the image. In this case, it's a link of this cat image stored somewhere on the internet. We just copy the link and paste it down our HTML website. So another cool attribute to the image tag is alt. One was source, which again basically handles the source of image. Another cool attribute that we have for image tag is the alt attribute. So basically what we'll do is put our another attribute after our source while still being within the angle brackets of our image tag. So if I go here, which is the end of this tag, but still being inside it, and if I do a space and type alt, it equals to, and then give whatever text, let's say cat image, right? So basically, alt attribute, what it does is basically if the source, which src, cannot find the source of an image, then it will just display cat image. So if I just cut our source like this, if I save it, as you can see, it doesn't display the cat image because it cannot detect the source, but we have alt attribute and we have cat image stored inside the alt attribute, so it shows cat image. That's what alt attribute does. So now let's bring back our cute cat by doing Ctrl Z like this. Now next thing I have to teach you guys is the anchor tag. So whenever you go to a website, you might have noticed that when you click on a link, it takes you to another website or another page of that same site, right? That is done by using anchor tags. So what I can do here is start a HTML tag by using the angle bracket and type A, which stands for anchor again, and basically use the href attribute of the anchor tag, which basically handles the link of this anchor tag. So if I do that and just close this, close this anchor tag, you guys might have noticed that it automatically made a closing anchor tag. And if I do this, this is the opening anchor tag and this is the closing anchor tag. So automatically made it for me. If it doesn't do for you, then you have to manually make it. Okay. So inside this, what I can do is give let's say that we are giving Google, right? Google link. And if I go to new tab right here and search google.com, it will take me to this page, right? I can copy this specific URL. It can be any URL. For example, I'm just doing google.com. And if I copy this and paste this in our href attribute, and save our HTML file, go back to our HTML website. As you can see, there is a Google link text that is underlined, which also you can click. So if you click that, it will take you to google.com, as you can see right here. So this is what we call a anchor tag, which basically handles link in our HTML website. If you want to put links to any other website or the same page on your website, you can use anchor tag, okay? You can also give another attribute to anchor tag, which is target, which basically, so what it does is basically, you might have noticed when on a website, if you click on a link, sometimes it opens the link for you in another tab. That is done by using the target attribute in HTML. If I give this anchor tag a target attribute and set the target attribute to blank and save it, when I click, so if I click on this link, it will open the google.com in another tab. If I click on this, as you can see, it opens the google.com link in another tab. So that's how you can control the links in our HTML. So that is all for this video. So at the end, let's do some fun things, right? I will give a heading to our HTML website that says cute cat image. If I do this, it will come on the top of our HTML website because the h1 tag is at the first. I'll also give this h1 tag another tag that is center, which basically centers our text. So if I keep it here, we have our h1 tag, right? Inside h1 tag, we have center tag, which basically, again, has a closing tag, which basically centering our cute image text. If I save this, it should move to the center of our HTML website. And after that, what I can do is put our image tag, okay? Bear with me here. Put our image tag inside our anchor tag. So if I close this content right here, right? And put our image tag inside our anchor tag. This is the opening anchor tag and this is the closing anchor tag. There are two anchor tags. Okay, let me cut that. So if I do that, basically what happens is this cat image becomes a clickable link because this is a kind of a, you can say, a content for anchor tag, right? So this cat image becomes our link. So if I click on this cat image, it will take me to google.com because this is the targeted link, right? So what I can do is type cat again and copy this link, the link to this cat, right? If I copy this link and change this to google.com in our website, and if I click on this cat link, it will take me to that website, as you can see. And that's it for today's video, guys. Hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In the next episode, we'll learn about forms and tables. If you have enough time, we'll also cover tables. So with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Ever tried to write a to-do list, but on a website? Or ever wondered how a website show bullet points, step-by-step instructions, or even FAQs? Well, guess what? That's all done using lists in HTML. And in this video, I'll show you 3 types of lists you can create, from classic bullet points to structured descriptions, and how to use them like a pro. So whether you're making a recipe site or navbar or just want to organize your content like a boss, grab your code editor and let's dive in. before I go forward, I'm using our coding compiler. It basically is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript compiler. If you want to check that out, link will be in the video description. Recently, we also have launched a new feature called Coding Labs, which basically is HTML compiler, but has an additional feature that is save and publish, where you can save and publish your work. So if you want to check that out, link will also be in the video description. So with that said, let's first make our boilerplate code. Super simple. I type HTML5 and it comes up. So I will cut this meta tag because I haven't taught you guys meta tags and I don't want to confuse you guys. Also make this title somewhat feasible. Let's say this episode 3 because it's our third episode, and close these. Okay, so this is our HTML boilerplate code, right? I taught you this in the first video. So first, let's start with unordered list, which basically means a fancy term for bullet points. Okay, super simple. You wrap your list with a UL tag. So go ahead and make a UL tag by using angle bracket inside and putting UL. If you are probably using VS Code. If it doesn't make a closing a UL tag, then make sure you make it manually. But if you have HTML snippets, it should, when you type UL like this, it should just make everything for you. As you can see, I typed UL and it basically made the opening UL tag and the closing UL tag. So inside the UL tag, we basically use the UL tag as a container to store our unordered list. Inside the UL tag, we'll basically give another tag that says li. Okay, so li is basically, it stands for list item, where unordered list stands for unordered list. Obviously, UL tag stands for unordered list. Li stands for list item. So it's basically the individual item you store in your list. So let's say my first item is apple. Basically, I'm making a list of fruits. Let's say my second item is orange. My third item is basically, let's say, mangoes. So this is our list. As you can see in the output screen, you get 3 items stored in a list. Basically is bullet points, right? This is what UL tag does. It basically makes a bullet points, right? You can also give this UL tag type attributes, saying type, and you can change the bullet points to other values. Let's say if you type square, the bullet points, which were the dots, will get changed to a square. Okay, you can also give a value called circle. It basically means a circle. Okay, usually this is not the recommended way of doing this because we can change this using CSS, but we haven't learned CSS. You can experiment with these while now, but after you learn CSS, do not do it. Okay, so after do this, I'll just make it to default. So this is our default UL tag, right? So another type of list that I want to show you guys is ordered list. If I go ahead and type OL, so OL obviously stands for ordered list. Inside the OL, we'll do list tag. We'll give a list tag like this, and let's say I'm storing this time vegetables. So let's say carrots, and next is, let's say, cabbage, and the third one is eggplant. If I do that, it will give me a list where it will be numbered. So it will be 1, 2, 3, right? It will basically be ordered list where it has individual numbering, right? In unordered list, it will just be the same type of numbering in every single thing because it's unordered, while ordered list basically has some sort of numbering. I can also give OL tag some type attributes and give the type attribute another different value. Let's say this time is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? By default, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I can change it to alphabets. If I give A, it will be A, B, C, D, and so on. If I give a capital A, it will be capitalized A to, so the A, B, C again, so on. I can also give a different value. Let's say I give I, so it'll be Roman numbering. I can also give capital I, it'll just be capital I Roman numbers, okay? So this was UL tags and OL tags, right? So another thing I want to teach you guys is the nested list, right? So if I come down here and give a UL tag like this, so this is our normal unordered list, right? Inside the UL tag, I'll give an li tag. normal, we have done this here, right? But the difference here will be, so I'll give, let's say, the list to be pizza, right? It will bring pizza to our output screen, right? But inside this li tag, right? If I, inside this list item tag, I give another UL tag, like inside this, I'll give another UL tag like this. This will become a nested list. So if I give individual items here, let's say first is pizza, right? Let's say I'm talking about the ingredients of a pizza. So the ingredient list will be a subcategory of this list. That is what we call nested list. Nested basically means something's inside something. So a nested list means list inside a list, okay? So if I do, let's say tomatoes, right? Pizza contains crust, right? If I do crust here, give another li tag and give tomatoes. And another list, another item will be, let's say, cheese. And another item, let's say, is sausage, right? So in this scenario, we use nested list because these all belong to this heading. It will just act like a heading, but it will still be a list. Now here's a bonus. So the last thing I will teach you guys is description list. So description lists are perfect for things like glossaries or definitions or FAQs, which has a title and something about the title. Let's say a question with answer or a title with a short review. Description lists are perfect for that application. So to make a description list, first you have to make the DL, which again stands for description list. So this will basically be like a container to store all of our other tags. Now, for the question or the title, right, we make a tag called DT. So what it stands for, it basically, you can assume it as description title or description term. This will be the title of our list. Let's say I'm making HTML. This will be our description title. So below this, I'll give a DD, which stands for description definition. So this will be linked to this HTML DT, which is again description title, right? HTML here is a title. So let's say HTML stands for hypertext markup language. If I do that, so as you can see, the definition is under the title, right? If I give, let me do like this so you can actually see. So if I give another DT here, which is outside, which is again outside these two tags here. If I, let's say, give CSS, so as you can see, the CSS is indented with HTML, so it's another title, right? I can also give its own DD, saying CSS stands for cascading style sheet, right? So this is how description lists work. It basically has a title with some sort of description of the given title. That's why it's called description list, okay? So you can use this instead of using nested list because it is way more easier and it is also good semantically. In certain situations, if you use description list, it actually crawls better. So this is one thing that you should know. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is the actual application of a list, right? Where is list actually used in a real life situation or a real world situation? So list is generally used when making, or obviously it's used to listing stuff, but majority wise it is used to make nav bars or menu bars. You see these nav bars right here which says courses, challenges, and if I click more, it has other stuffs, right? This is what a list is used for. It is used to make, normally it is just used to make a nav bar. If I just create a list here, right? If I give a list and the first item in the list is courses. And if I bound this with another ankle tag, then it is a link, right? Inside this list, if I give an ankle tag like this, and the ankle tag will lead to somewhere, I'll just do this, right? And I'll close this like this. So this is a list which also is a link, right? If I click on one of these, then it will lead me to some website or another page of the same website, right? Normally in navbar, you use ankle tags to actually link something, which is also a list, right? If I give challenges here, and let's say the last one is more. So only difference is that this is only HTML, so it looks kind of bad or, unattractive because we haven't added any styling yet. Once we start using CSS, it will probably look more like this. You can change it or style it however you want. But for now, just understand list is normally used to make navbars or obviously to list things in a website. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions regarding our today's lesson, then please feel free to comment down below and I'll do my best to answer every single one of them. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Spreadsheets, calendars, pricing charts. Behind the scenes, they're all made with HTML tables. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to create them and make your data look clean, readable, and organized. Let's go. So today's video is about tables. So to make tables in our HTML, obviously write our boilerplate code. And after that, make a table tag, okay? So make a table tag. Inside this table tag is where we'll write all of our table HTML code, okay? So the first thing that we will need to make is the table row. So it has a short form tag that is called tr. So this is one singular row in your table. Inside this tr tag, give a th. What is th? Th stands for table heading. So this will be a heading for your column, right? The data on your column. So let's say I'm making a table of products. I'll give the first th I'll give is numbering. So I'll do s.n serial number, right? It pops up in our HTML code right there. And after that, since it's the heading, right? Now, again, another thing, the font weight of the table heading will be kind of strong. So after th, again, this is the first row, right? So every single row that we'll put will be kept inside th because, again, it is going through the row, right? If I do another table heading here, obviously, if I let's say do products, right? It will come beside our th tag because it is another column, right? It is heading to another column. This whole will be a row, right? So we'll give another th saying, let's say price. So I'm essentially just what I'm creating will be numbering for the products, the actual products, and the prices for the products, right? I'll copy this all, right? Actually, I'll not copy that. That's a very bad. Don't copy, guys. So I'll make another table row. So this will be the second row in our table, right? So this will essentially be the data. So we'll not wrap this inside a table heading tag or a th tag. We'll give another tag to our HTML that will be td. So td basically stands for table data. So this will be an individual data that you will put inside your table. So the first data I want to input will be a laptop. Let's say the first heading, as you can see, is SN. So I'll put 1 here. So the 1 will appear below the serial number or SN column, as you can see right here. And I'll give another TD. I'll give another TD saying, let's say laptop, right? So this is a laptop. And let's say another TD is, let's say laptop is $1,700, right? I'll say that. I can give another, I'll just copy paste this time. I didn't copy paste it because it has th tag. You cannot have multiple heading rows, right? So now that I am using td tag, I just copy paste it. Let's say this is our second data. And this is about, let's say phones, right? Our phone. And the phone is, let's say $1,000. So this is how you create HTML table, okay? So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, it is a table, but where are the lines that separate? I cannot, it just looks really messy right now, right? what you can do is come to our table tag and give an attribute called border. So this will basically make a border. Let's say border is 1. You can also increase the value, but it will just look more weird. So for now, let's just give, let's say 5. Looks clean like that. So this is our table tag, okay? Now up next is column span and row span. So when you want to merge cells and columns in your table, then you will use row span and column span. Let's see how it works. Let's first make a table, obviously. We'll make a table, and inside the table, we'll also give a border, obviously. Let's say the border is 5, right? So what we'll do is make our tr tag, okay? Inside the tr tag, I'll give 2 heading tag, okay? The first heading tag will say name, and another heading tag will say, let's say, contact, okay? So inside this contact, right? So under this contact, right? I misspelled it, oops. So under this contact, let's say I want 2 other columns, right? Let's make another row. And let's make another row, and let's give another th. Let's say the th about email and phone number, okay? So this will be our essential data, right? This will help put. The thing is, let's say that I want the email and phone number to be under contact, and I want this whole space right here to be just for the name, because obviously email cannot be under name, right? So for that, what we can do is use row span and column span. So for name, since it's, the email is in another row, so what I'll do is tell this th tag, which has a name, to take 2 spaces instead of 1, because right now it's just taking 1 space in the cell, right? I want the name to take name for itself, obviously, with also taking the cell space for email. For that, what you can do is give a row span like this. I'll give the value of the row span to be 2. With that, what we'll do is basically shift the email to contact and take 2 row spaces in our table. I'll give the same to contact, but this time I'll not use row span because I don't need a row space, right? Now here, contact needs to take 2 spaces, but it's not on the row, it's on the column, as you can see. This is 1 column, this is 2nd column. We shifted email and phone number to the right. We made the name take 2 row spaces. So this time I'll give a value called column span. I'll type column span and give a value, let's say 2. So with that, as you can see right here, the name is taking 2 row spaces and contact is taking 2 column spaces. Now it's arranged accurately, right? We have name, which stores the user's name, and we have 2 sections in contact, that is email and phone number. So I'll give another tr tag, but this time it will be for table data. For the name, I'll give Anthony, right? I'll copy paste this 2 times. So let's say the email of Anthony is anthony@gmail.com, like this. And for the password, let's say Anthony@123. So you can use row span and column span to make complex table structures like these if you have a situation where you need to. Quick tip, only use tables for tabular data, for rows and column information, not for page layouts, okay? That's what CSS is for, that we will be exploring in upcoming videos when we'll start our CSS journey, right? Use tables when you're showing like stats, reports, price comparisons, calendars or schedules, or contact directories, okay? Congrats guys! You just built your first HTML table like a boss. Up next, we're learning forms, and you can start collecting user informations like names, emails, and feedbacks. If you learned something new, give this video a like, sub if you haven't, and drop a comment if you have any questions regarding today's lesson. And also tell me what's one thing you'll build with the table. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Want to collect names, emails, or passwords? Or build your own contact form? You're about to enter the world of HTML forms, and this is where your website starts talking back. Get it? Because it gives you back results. Okay, I'll stop. With that said, let's get started. So let's first understand forms. What is a form? A form is how a user sends back a data or any information to a server. It can be your server or any other server. Like signing up, logging in, submitting a comment. It all happens using form. So let's first make a simple form and let's make our information more broader, okay? So what we'll first do is obviously make our boilerplate code. I'll do HTML5 here and change the title to, let's say, forms in HTML. Cut this meta tag because I haven't taught you meta tags, and cut these two. So we have our HTML boilerplate code. Inside body, what we'll do is make a form tag. So I'll do form. So inside this, we'll make our form. As same as table tag in the last video, we'll use form tag. So in the last video, we made our table inside the table tag. This time we'll make our form in form tag. So it's just that simple. So what we'll do is start with basics, okay? So here, I want you to type input, okay? When you type input tag, it basically generates an input field, right? Where you can type stuff, as you can see right here. I can just type stuff, right? So this is what we call the input field. It lets the user type or give an information that will then get sent to a server, okay? We can also give it a type attribute saying this given field is for text. So you can enter text in this field. I can change this to number. Now, if I do that, I can only enter number inside this input field. As you can see, I'm trying to type text, but it's not working. If I type number, it will work. There's also an increment and decrement button here where you can use to get your value, right? Now, another value to the type attribute is, let's say, email. If I do that, so what is the difference between that? Let's say I type anything. Let's say I type Coden and hit enter. As you can see, it says, please include an address in email address, because this specific field is about email address, right? It will not work until I give something like @gmail.com. Now, if I do this, it will work, as you can see. So this is what input field is, right? Now, I'll show you more values to the type attribute in a second, but before that, I want to show you another important thing. So as you can see, there is an empty input field right here. But how does the user know to enter email inside this input field, right? Now, for that, there are another two things you can do. One is give a label to this input field saying email, like this, right? And connect this label to this input field. Now, how do you do that? Now, give a for attribute to a label, which says, let's say it's for email, right? This label is for email. And how do you connect this label, which is this email right here, to this input field? To do that, so we have the label right here, right? Which has the for attribute set to email. We can give the same attribute to input as ID. I can give the same attribute as ID. As you can see, the value of the for is email and the value of ID is email. Now, what happens is if I click this label, the input field that corresponds to given label activates, right? If I click on label, as you can see, this input field get activated. Now, here's the deal. Now, in our series, you'll probably see ID used a lot in later episodes because not only it is useful for forms, as you can see right here, but it also is a CSS selector. Now, what are those? We'll not get into those in this video because it's about the CSS. We'll learn it when we'll start CSS, so don't worry, okay? For now, just understand that ID right here is basically a connector that basically connects label and the input tags, okay? Now I said I'll show you more type attributes, right? Now what I can do is give another type attribute to the input field saying password. If I do that, whatever I type inside this will just get, it will just change it to dot because, password is supposed to be encrypted and hidden. So that makes sense, right? Now I can give another type attribute saying another is a checkbox. If I do that, it changes the input field to a checkbox. You can check it like this. You can also use the email right here, which is label, which is again connected using the for attribute to inputs because we have the same for an ID value, right? If I click on email, this gets checked. So this is especially useful when you're making checkboxes because let's say the checkbox is really small, then you can just click on the corresponding label to make it activate like this. You can also give it another attributes. Now, this will be the last attribute that we'll learn in this video, and we'll do a small project and wrap the video, okay? So, another value to the type attribute is the file. Now, if you give the type attribute to the file in input field, what happens is when I click this email like this, it will basically activate my files like this. You can choose anything and submit to the servers, okay? So that's all of the things that we essentially learn in this video. Now, there are a lot more values to the type attribute that we'll learn in another video. This will be 2 to 3 parts video because forms is really big topic, okay? Now, at last, we'll do a small project about forms. Now, this will be a form that will basically input your email, password, and just submit it, okay? What I'll do is basically make a label first, obviously. We'll make a label. And this label will be about, I misspelled it, there you go. So this label will be about email, like this. Now we'll make another input field. Let me not do that, I guess. We'll do input. This will have a couple of attributes, okay? So the first attribute that we'll put is type. Now again, I've taught you the email type, right? Now, another new thing that we will learn in this video, don't worry, there are a lot of things to learn, I know, just grab slowly, okay? I'll take you slowly, don't worry. Now, another attribute that you can give to this input field is placeholder. Now, what does placeholder do? You might have noticed that when visiting a website, when you're logging in, inside the input field, you'll see a text return saying enter your email or enter your username, right? That's because of the placeholder attribute. If I give enter your email here, what happens is it comes up inside the input field, but when I type something, it will disappear, right? This is what placeholder does. It basically gives a short description about what the input field is. Now I can copy this and paste it here. Now it will look kind of jumbled up. To fix it, I can give a BR tag. Now what is BR tag? BR tag is basically skips one line, so it's one line, right? After this tags, it will skip one line. Now what I'm doing is breaking the line after this two label and input fields. That's what BR stands for. That means break, okay? So if I put a BR tag after this, right, like right here, it'll just break the line like this, as you can see. Now it still looks kind of messy, so I'll give 2 BR tags. Now it looks more cleaner. So basically the first BR tag was to break the line here, and the second BR tag was just to basically make a space. This whole line is just a BR tag, okay? So after that, what we'll do is, there you go. So another input field will be for password. I did the same. I just copy pasted this to here. Now I'll give a for attribute to this saying email, and I'll give an ID attribute saying same, because again I want to link these two, right? I want to link these two. I'm going to do the same here saying it's for password. Give an ID saying password. Okay. So when I click on email, this input field gets activated, and when I click on password, this input field gets activated. I also changed the placeholder, I just noticed, because it was saying the same. I'll say enter your password. Now it starts to look like an actual input field or actual sign up page, right? I can type something, let's say codin@gmail.com, right? And I can also type, let's say, the password. Oh, actually I forgot to give the password type. I'll quickly give password type. After that, if I do codin@gmail.com here, and let's say my password is something, if I hit enter. So another question that you might have in your minds is, how do we submit whatever information that is inside these two input fields? Now, there are a couple of ways of doing it, but the most common method of doing it is making a button, right? We'll make a button. So button is button where if you click it, some sort of function will get triggered. So here, this will be a submit button. As you can see, I'll put a BR tag to shift it down, right? Like that. I'll give another BR tag to shift even further, like this. Now, what I'll do is basically in button, I'll give a type attribute. I'll give a type attribute saying submit. Okay. So this button right here will be the button that will be used to submit information from the form. So let's try to submit something, right? I'll type codin@gmail.com, type something here, and when I click on submit, it will get submitted. Where does it get submitted? Nowhere, of course. We haven't set up any backend servers or stands that will take all of the information, so it will just disappear and you cannot get it at all, okay? So that's it for the video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any doubts regarding today's lesson, please feel free to comment down below and I will try to answer every single one of them. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Want to collect names, emails, or passwords? Or build your own contact form? You're about to enter the world of HTML forms, and this is where websites start stalking back. Get it? Because it gives you back results. Okay, I'll stop. With that said, let's get started. So let's first understand forms. What is a form? A form is how a user sends back a data or any information to a server. It can be your server or any other server. Like signing up, logging in, submitting a comment. It all happens using form. So let's first make a simple form and let's make our information more broader, okay? So what we'll first do is obviously make our boilerplate code. I'll do HTML5 here and change the title to, let's say, forms in HTML. Cut this meta tag because I haven't taught you meta tags, and cut these two. So we have our HTML boilerplate code. Inside body, what we'll do is make a form tag. So I'll do form. So inside this, we'll make our form. As same as table tag in the last video, we'll use form tag. So in the last video, we made our table inside the table tag. This time we'll make our form in form tag. So it's just that simple. So what we'll do is start with basics, okay? So here, I want you to type input, okay? When you type input tag, it basically generates an input field, right? Where you can type stuff, as you can see right here. I can just type stuff, right? So this is what we call the input field. It lets the user type or give an information that will then get sent to a server, okay? We can also give it a type attribute saying this given field is for text. So you can enter text in this field. I can change this to number. Now, if I do that, I can only enter number inside this input field. As you can see, I'm trying to type text, but it's not working. If I type number, it will work. There's also an increment and decrement button here where you can use to get your value, right? Now, another value to the type attribute is, let's say, email. If I do that, so what is the difference between that? Let's say I type anything. Let's say I type Coden and hit enter. As you can see, it says, please include an address in email address because this specific field is about email address, right? It will not work until I give something like @gmail.com. Now, if I do this, it will work, as you can see. So this is what input field is, right? Now, I'll show you more values to the type attribute in a second. But before that, I want to show you another important thing. So as you can see, there is an empty input field right here. But how does the user know to enter email inside this input field, right? Now, for that, there are another two things you can do. One is give a label to this input field saying email, like this, right? And connect this label to this input field. Now, how do you do that? Now, give a for attribute to a label, which says, let's say it's for email, right? This label is for email. And how do you connect this label, which is this email right here, to this input field? To do that, so we have the label right here, right? Which has the for attribute set to email. We can give the same attribute to input as ID. I can give the same attribute as ID. As you can see, the value of the for is email and the value of ID is email. Now, what happens is if I click this label, the input field that corresponds to given label activates, right? If I click on label, as you can see, this input field get activated. Now, here's the deal. Now, in our series, you'll probably see ID used a lot in later episodes because not only it is useful for forms, as you can see right here, but it also is a CSS selector. Now, what are those? We'll not get into those in this video because it's about the CSS. We'll learn it when we'll start CSS, so don't worry, okay? For now, just understand that ID right here is basically a connector that basically connects label and the input tags, okay? Now, I said I'll show you more type attributes, right? Now, what I can do is give another type attribute to the input field saying password. If I do that, whatever I type inside this will just get, it will just change it to dot because, password is supposed to be encrypted and hidden, so that makes sense, right? Now, I can give another type attribute saying another is a checkbox. If I do that, it changes the input field to a checkbox. You can check it like this. You can also use the email right here, which is label, which is again connected using the for attribute to inputs because we have the same for an ID value, right? If I click on email, this gets checked. So this is especially useful when you're making checkboxes because let's say the checkbox is really small, then you can just click on the corresponding label to make it activate like this. You can also give it another attributes. Now, this will be the last attribute that we'll learn in this video, and we'll do a small project and wrap the video, okay? So, another value to the type attribute is the file. Now, if you give the type attribute to the file in input field, what happens is when I click this email like this, it will basically activate my files like this. You can choose anything and submit to the servers, okay? So that's all of the things that we essentially learn in this video. Now, there are a lot more values to the type attribute that we'll learn in another video. This will be 2 to 3 parts video because forms is really big topic, okay? Now, at last, we'll do a small project about forms. Now, this will be a form that will basically input your email, password, and just submit it, okay? What we'll do is basically make a label first, obviously. We'll make a label. And this label will be about, wait, I misspelled it, there you go. So this label will be about email, like this. Now we'll make another input field. Wait, let me not do that, I guess. We'll do input. This will have a couple of attributes, okay? So the first attribute that we'll put is type. Now again, I've taught you the email type, right? Now, another new thing that we will learn in this video, don't worry, there are a lot of things to learn, I know, just grab slowly, okay? I'll take you slowly, don't worry. Now, another attribute that you can give to this input field is placeholder. Now, what does placeholder do? When you might have noticed that when visiting a website, when you're logging in, inside the input field, you'll see a text return saying enter your email or enter your username, right? That's because of the placeholder attribute. If I give enter your email here, what happens is it comes up inside the input field, but when I type something, it will disappear, right? This is what placeholder does. It basically gives a short description about what the input field is. Now I can copy this and paste it here. Now it will look kind of jumbled up. To fix it, I can give a BR tag. Now what is BR tag? BR tag is basically skips one line, so it's one line, right? After this tags, it will skip one line. Now what I'm doing is breaking the line after this two label and input fields. That's what BR stands for. That means break, okay? So if I put a BR tag after this, right, like right here, it'll just break the line, like this, as you can see. Now it still looks kind of messy, so I'll give two BR tags. Now it looks more cleaner. So basically the first BR tag was to break the line here, and the second BR tag was just to basically make a space. This whole line is just a BR tag, okay? So after that, what we'll do is, there you go. So another input field will be for password. I did the same, I just copy pasted this to here. Now I'll give a for attribute to this saying email, and I'll give an ID attribute saying same, because again I want to link these two, right? I want to link these two. I can do the same here saying it's for password, give an ID saying password, okay? So when I click on email, this input field gets activated, and when I click on password, this input field gets activated. I also changed the placeholder, I just noticed, because it was saying the same. I'll say enter your password. Now it starts to look like an actual input field or actual sign up page, right? I can type something, let's say codin@gmail.com, right? And I can also type, let's say, the password. Oh, actually, I forgot to give the password type. I'll quickly give password type. After that, if I do codin@gmail.com here, and let's say my password is something, if I hit enter. So another question that you might have in your minds is, how do we submit whatever information that is inside these two input fields? Now, there are a couple of ways of doing it, but the most common method of doing it is making a button, right? We'll make a button. So button is button where if you click it, some sort of function will get triggered. So here, this will be a submit button. As you can see, I'll put a BR tag to shift it down, right? Like that. I'll give another BR tag to shift even further, like this. Now what I'll do is basically in button, I'll give a type attribute. I'll give a type attribute saying submit. Okay. So this button right here will be the button that will be used to submit information from the form. So let's try to submit something, right? I'll type codin@gmail.com, type something here, and when I click on submit, it will get submitted. Where does it get submitted? Nowhere, of course. We haven't set up any backend servers or stands that will take all of the information, so it will just disappear and you cannot get it at all, okay? So that's it for the video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any doubts regarding today's lesson, please feel free to comment down below and I will try to answer every single one of them. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. So your website works, but let's be honest, it looks like it was built in 1995. In this video, we're gonna change that with CSS, the secret sauce that makes website actually look good. And by end of this episode, you will write real CSS and completely transform your first web page. So let's get started. Let's first understand what is CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's what makes websites colorful, clean, and professional. Without CSS, everything would look plain and boring. With that said, there are three ways to add CSS to your web page. First one is inline CSS, which is written inside the tag with a style attribute. So it is a very messy way of writing CSS, so it's not generally preferred. Another way of writing CSS is internal CSS, which is written inside a style tag, which again, it is still a messy way of writing CSS, but it's still generally better than writing inline CSS. And the last and the most professional way of writing CSS is external CSS, where we make a separate .css file to write our CSS code. So with that said, let's move on to computer screen and I'll show you all three ways of writing CSS and style our very first web page. So here I have HTML boilerplate code, right? What I'm gonna do is make an h1 tag that says, this is episode 6, right? So we have this h1 tag that says this is episode 6. Now to add styling or CSS to this text, I can do it by three ways. The first one is inline CSS. What I'm going to do is put a style tag, not tag, style attribute, right? So I can, inside this, I can give a specific CSS value or CSS property, which we like to call, saying color, and then give it color red, and that will make this text red, as you can see. But what if I want to add multiple styling or multiple things, right? What if I want to change the font size? You can do that by putting a semicolon here, saying that this line has terminated, right? And after this, you can do is give font size. Let me just quickly do this. And give a font size of, let's say, 10 pixels. That will make the actual text smaller, right? So this is what we call inline CSS. But this is not generally a good way of actually putting CSS to your HTML element, because what if you have 10 CSS property that you want to apply to a specific HTML element? This will make this a nightmare to actually read, right? So that's why we'll not be doing this. Let's reset this and call this. There you go. I reset the h1 tag. So instead of that, what you can do is put a style tag, which we will use this in today's video. And after we are comfortable using style tag, we'll move on to making another CSS file, which is this right here, saying style.css. We'll code into that. But for now, let's try style tag. Okay. So what we can do is put a style tag saying style, right? As you can see right here. So inside the style tag, we can put our CSS. But here's the deal. How do we select this h1 tag inside the style tag? To do that, what we can do is type h1, right? Give a bracket, And inside this, I can type my CSS, that is color, and let's again put it to red. That also changes the actual color of the font to whatever you set it to be, right? Now, here's the deal. What if there are multiple H1 tags? And let's say that this is, again, let's just say hello world, like this, right? It also applies the same CSS property to the another H1 tag because we selected H1 as our CSS selector. This H1 right here, this is what we called a CSS selector, right? Now, how do we separate the CSS property that we're applying to our HTML element, right? To do that, that's where class and IDs come in. So I can give a class to this H1 tag saying, let's say class text. I can give it anything I want. Doesn't have to be that, right? Now I can select this using a dot. So to select a class, we use dot, okay? So we can do dot text. After that, it will apply the CSS property only for the selected class HTML element. So as you can see, I put class text to only this H1 tag. That will make it so whatever content that is written inside the H1 tag will only get the CSS applied to it. Okay. So here H1 tag, I can also give it class text, right? And it will apply the same CSS property. Okay. So here's the deal. Okay. I can also give it an ID. I get ID, let's say hello text, and give that. Now inside our style tag, to select this H1 tag, which has an ID of hello text, to do that, what I can do is type hash hello text. Okay. Now this is how you select an ID and class. For class, we use a dot, and for ID, we use hash. If I want to change this color to, let's say, blue, that will change the color of hello world to blue. Now, another important CSS concept, we can put class to multiple HTML element. That means I can also put this class to this H1 tag, right? It is generally preferred when you want the same styling to two different HTML elements. So you don't have to separately style them each time, and it will save time, right? But IDs, in the other hand, are basically a unique ID given to an HTML element. That's why it's called ID. It's a unique identification given to an HTML element. That means ID can only be one. It is used when you want to actually uniquely apply the CSS property to that specific HTML element. To be fair, right, if I give same ID to two different H1 tag, it will still apply the same CSS property, but it's ID. The purpose of ID is having a unique identification rather than the same CSS property, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Now, here's the deal. Another concept that I can teach you is, let's say I have the class set to text, right? I have the class set to text. I can also give it an ID, another ID, saying, let's say, text unique. I can give it whatever I want, right? I can give it whatever I want, and let's say I select this and do hash and select this HTML H1 tag using its ID, which is text unique, in our CSS or style tag. What we can do is give it a color. Let's say I give it pink. As you can see, it overrode the CSS property that was in the class, right? So with this, you can actually understand that another property that CSS has is ID has more priority than class. As you can see, I can give it whatever color that I want, and that will override the color that was written in the class or the any other CSS property that we will learn in later on in this video. Quick recap. So let's do a quick recap session of whatever we learned till far, right? So we have a style tag here. We have HTML boilerplate code, which an H1 tag that says hello world, and a paragraph tag that says this is the first episode of CSS, which it is, right? What I'm going to do is give each of these a class, because class can be applied, again, as I said, to multiple HTML elements. But if we just use class for a single HTML element, then it can also act as an ID, right? So I can give in a class of, let's say, hello text, right? And I'll give a class to this paragraph tag saying sentence or sentence, like that. You can give it anything that you want. It doesn't really matter. So now inside the style tag, I'll select these two HTML element. So I can do dot hello text. Now I can give it some CSS properties. So the first one I can give is color. I can give it red, right? And I can also give it a font size of, let's say, 20 pixels, like this. It will make it smaller. And I can also align it at the center of the web page using text align property. Text align property, giving it center. It will move the hello world to center. Now, another is class. So let's say dot sentence. I can select that. And I can give it, let's say, I can change the font, which in CSS property, it is called font family. I can change it to, let's say, sans serif. It will change the font of the text, as you can see. And color, I can put it something like gray, like this. I can also align it to center, right? And that should be it. If you want to go more detailed, you can also explore something like giving borders. But to actually give borders, you have to learn CSS box model, which we'll not learn in today's video. CSS box model is the thing that we'll learn in next video, so stay tuned. So with that said, this is all the things that we'll learn in today's video. Obviously, there are a lot more CSS property that we'll learn in this CSS journey. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you learned anything new about CSS, or you learned to actually style your very first web page, then hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to check out our compiler and our even a new feature that's called Code in Labs, then link will be in the video description. Please make sure to give support and check out our HTML, CSS, and JavaScript compiler. If you also want to check out our other compilers like Python, Java, C#, C++, it will all be in the compiler section of our website. So with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Ever added padding and your box just exploded in size? Or tried adding space and nothing moved? That's CSS box model messing with you. And today we'll master it once and for all. So let's first understand what is CSS box model. Every HTML element is basically a box. Even text, pictures, icons, images, everything, right? This box is made up of 4 layers. So the very first layer is basically the content. What it is let's say if I click on this right here, right, which basically allows me to select individual component, and it basically shows the properties of those HTML component, right? It basically shows how much space a given HTML element is taking up in the web page. If I click here and hover over this, as you can see, there's a blue space, which is the content. If I show you, if I do this right like that, this is basically the space that is the content is taking, right? There's a specific amount of space that content takes up in HTML element depending on how big it is. In this case, we have used an h1 tag, which is relatively big because it's a heading tag, right? And there's also a orange color. So that is what we call a margin. But I'm gonna change it to 0 because we don't want margin, so I'm going to do margin 0 and padding 0. So by default, there is some sort of margin and padding that is given to your HTML element when you first make it without giving any CSS property. So I'm going to change it to margin 0, and it'll basically take no space, right? I'm going to explain what is margin and other stuff in a bit, so don't worry. First, let's understand the content. Content is basically the space content takes. So as you know, our h1 tag here is basically a block level element. Actually, I'm going to comment this out for a second because it's very hard to focus without this tag. So this right here, h1 is a block level element. That means it will basically take up the entire line to itself, right? So I'm going to do is give this h1 tag a class saying, let's say container. Select this in our style tag using .container. And let's say I'm going to do a display inline block. Now if I do that, it will only take as much space that it should, which is the size of this text right here, right? But doing inline block is a really good thing, because if I do inline, that still makes the same thing. It will only take up that much space. But if you just do display inline, what it does is basically you cannot set the individual value of the width and the height, right? If I do width, let's say width is 100 pixels, let's say 500 pixels, I'm going to change it to bigger number, sorry. And let's say the height is also 500 pixels. As you can see, it's still taking 171.63 and 36 pixels. That is the actual number of the pixels that the content is taking, which is the blue area shaded right here, right? But if I do inline block, this is another CSS property, okay? Like, understand it very carefully. If I do inline block, as you can see, the blue region expanded quite a few margins because we have set the width to 500 pixels. As you can see, if I go down here, I cannot hover over it because I will just change it. That says h1 container 500 into 500, which is the amount of pixels that is taking on the web page. Okay, so that is one property of the inline block. So I'm going to set it to inline block. So the reason I explained it is because I'm going to use inline block to, set custom heights. So I'm going to do 200 pixels for now. I did this to make sure that I can explain the CSS box model more efficiently. Now I've set the h1 container, right, to width 200 pixels and height 200 pixels. So if I do that, as you can see, it will take that much space. Okay, that's it. Now the actual CSS box model. So we know the most innermost part in the CSS box model is the content size, right? If I uncomment this and bring out our chart or our model, as you can see, the most innermost part is the content size, which again we have set it to width 200 pixels. So this width right here is 200 pixels and height is 200 pixels, right? Now outside the content is the padding, another layer to the CSS box model. As I said before, CSS box model contains of 4 layers. All the HTML elements are made up of these 4 layers, right? Outside the actual content size is the padding. So I'm going to comment this part out and give this h1 tag a padding. If I do padding, let's say the padding is 30 pixels. So as you can see, the content moved a little bit downward, right? If I hover over this again, as you can see, there's a green border that is made up outside this h1 tag, right? That is the actual padding, right? That is the padding, which is 30 pixels on all 4 directions. Okay, now if I bring out this again, outside the padding is the border, right? I can give the border, so there is actually a specific syntax of writing the border. The first thing that you have to specify is the size of the border. In this case, I'm going to do 30 pixels because I've also made padding 30 pixels. So I'm going to give border also 30 pixels. It might look a little bit bad, but we are not going for design, but we are just going for learning, right? The second thing that you want to specify is you want a solid border or a dotted border. I'm going to do a solid border, right? So it'll basically create a solid border. I'm going to comment this image part so we can focus on this. It made a solid border. By default, the color is black. You can change it by giving the color right here saying 30 pixels solid red or any of your color. If I save this, it will change it to red, as you can see. But I'll keep it black for now because it looks more pleasing, right? That is border. You can also set the border to, let's say, dotted. It will basically give a dotted border like this, but it looks kind of bad in my opinion, so I'm going to change it to solid like this. So this is solid, right? So this is the border. So border is the layer that is after padding, right? So the another and the last layer that we have to learn is the margin. So margin is the outermost layer in a CSS box model. I can also set the margin to, let's say, 30 pixel like this. And you see the margin is invisible. You cannot set the color of the margin, right? But if I hover over it, the orange part you see is the margin, right? That is the margin of this HTML element. So I'm going to repeat one more time. The innermost part in HTML element is the content, which is this right here. We have set it to with 200 pixels, so it is 200 pixels by 200 pixels. I can change it by using only that. It will basically change it to the actual space of the text, but to make it look more visible, I'm going to set it to 200 pixels wide and 200 pixels of the height. Now, after content is the padding, the green border you see right here, but it's not border, it's padding, which is inside border but outside the content. So if you want to give some space that is outside content but is still inside the border, you give padding. Don't worry, I'm gonna actually make sure you understand it by using a real life application, which I'm gonna do at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Don't go anywhere from the video. And if you're enjoying the video so far and you're understanding the CSS box model, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe, please. So outside padding is border. Okay, so if you want to give border to HTML element, you give the border property in the CSS, and after border is the margin. So margin is used when you want to separate two different HTML elements. Okay, if I give, let's say if I copy these two like this, as you can see, there are two boxes now, but I can give a margin. So another way of giving margin and padding is by giving the specific margin and padding, right? If I want to give margin in right direction, right, I can give margin right. So I can give margin right like this, and let's say 20 pixels. It will basically set margin on right side to 20 pixels. If I keep increasing it, it will increase. As you can see, I gave 100 pixels, it increased by 100 pixels like this. I can also give a margin left like this to 100, let's say 50 pixels. It will basically set the margin on the left on 50 pixels. I can also set margin on top, saying 100 pixels. It will basically set margin on top, and also I can do on bottom like this, but it will kind of makes no sense of doing bottom because there is nothing on the bottom anyways, right? That's margin. Now another thing that you can do is give padding the same thing. If I do padding left, I can give it, let's say 100 pixels. It will basically set margin on padding on left side to be 100 pixels. I can also give it padding right, let's say 100 pixels again. It will basically set padding to right side to 100 pixels. I'm going to set padding top to 100 pixels as well. As you can see, padding on top on 100 pixels. I can also set padding bottom to 100 pixels, and just like that, it will set the padding on bottom on 100 pixels. So that is all about CSS box model. So to show you a real life example of CSS box model, what I'm going to do is show you to make an actual modern style button, right? What I'm going to do is inside body, I'm going to make a button that says, let's say button, because let's say, right now it looks very bad because it's a default button, right? I'm going to set the class to, let's say, container again, same name. I'm going to call this container like this. Okay, I selected this button in my CSS style tag. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the font size to a visible size, let's say 50 pixels. As you can see, I'm going to capitalize the B to make it look more cleaner. So the font size is 50 pixels. So we know that padding is the space that is between border and the content, right? So for the padding, I want, let's say 25 pixels on left and right and 30 pixels on top and bottom. What I'm going to do is padding left. I'm going to do 20 pixels. And padding right, I'm going to do 20 pixels as well. So there's 20 pixels right there. Padding top is, let's say 30 pixels. And padding bottom is 30 pixels. As you can see right there, it looks more cleaner. So this is the actual application of padding, okay? I'm also gonna set a margin of 30 pixels to make sure it comes a little bit down instead of having just, glued to top left corner of the screen. As you can see, giving margin, it basically set 30 pixel margin on all 4 directions like that. Now for the styling, right? So for the styling, what I'm going to do is set the color of background. So I'm going to do a background color. I'm going to set it to, let's say, this button, floral, I guess. Looks clean, as you can see. But the text color, which is black, doesn't look appetizing, which is I think the wrong way to put it, but still I'm going to say it. I'm going to set it to white. So I set the text color to white. So by default, it has a small border. So I'm going to set the border to none because I don't want any border. I'm going to set the border property to none, which will basically erase this border, as you can see right there. And what I'm going to do is basically set the border radius, right? So border radius is basically the corners of the border. So if I give a border radius, it will basically set the corner values of the border. So it looks more cleaner, as you can see. It looks more cleaner and modern, right? I'm going to actually change I'm going to change this to, let's say, 25 pixels and this 25 pixels. It looks more cleaner, as you can see. Now that is the modern style button. So yeah, that's it. That is CSS box model. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also check out coding.com. Link will be in the video description. And I'll see you guys in another video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is our 8th episode of our CSS series, and today we're learning about something super powerful in CSS, but often confusing when you're just starting out. CSS positioning. Don't worry, I'm gonna explain it like you're 5. We'll keep it fun, simple, and we'll look all about CSS positioning. With that said, let's get started. Alright, so I have a boilerplate code, right? And inside the body, I have a div, which is our main container div. But what I'm gonna do is give this a container and copy this and put another one. I was supposed to do that, but unfortunately it didn't happen. That's unfortunate, but like, okay. So I'm going to give it box 1. So what I'm going to do, so essentially what I'm doing is I have an outside div, which is a container for all 5 of these divs, right? And all 5 of these divs are an individual box, or we will assume them as a box. And they have 2 classes each. So one is their mutual class, which we'll use to apply mutual CSS property to all 5 of these boxes. And we have another CSS class. By the way, if you want to put multiple classes in the same HTML element, this is how you do it. One class is box, another class is box 1. So you can understand it like that, right? So let's style our container and our box. What I'm going to do is I've got container like this and give it a width of, let's say, 80%, right? So because the width should be 80%, not pixels, like this, and give a height of 1000 pixels because I wanted to take all of the space as much as it can. and also give a border so we can see how far or how much the container is taking. So I'm going to give 2 pixels, solid black. With that said, you should see that. Yep. I'm going to increase this by a little bit. Let's say 90 pixels. Yep. Okay, that should be fine. And with that said, that's our container, right? So now for the individual box 1 elements, I'm going to do box 1 and give it a background color of, let's say, red for the first one. And here, give it a width. If you're wondering why the background did not get red, because we haven't defined how big is the box 1. So if I give it a width of, let's say, 100%, if I do that, it will take width 100% inside this div container, because this is inside this div container, right? If I do that, then it will take width of 100%, and height, let's say we'll give it 50 pixels each. As you can see, it appeared. I'm gonna probably put it a little bigger. Let's say 400 pixels. As you can see, that is first div, right? I'm also gonna put some text saying box 1 and give the color to white, and also give the font size to really big so we can actually see. There we go. And also give a text align of center. Okay, that's inside that box. So I'm gonna copy this, right? Copy this. I'm gonna change it to box 2 and box 3, same as box 4 and box 5. So I'm gonna label these as that. So there will be multiple boxes here. I'm gonna copy this and paste it 4 times now. So that's box 1, that's box 2. Let's say box 2 will have a color of blue. Box 3 is that, and it will have a color of green, like that. And box 4 will have a color of orange, let's say, like that. And we'll also make another for box 5. And we'll have a color of pink, let's say. Now these are all of the boxes, right? Now let's start with our CSS position, or the property of position. Okay, the first position property is the static. So if I give position to static, as you can see, nothing happens, right? Because static is the by default property of every HTML element. By default, every HTML element is positioned static. So because it's already there, it doesn't do anything. What is static? So if we do static, all the HTML element will come to top to bottom. So since we have box 1 at the top, so it will be box 1 at the top. So it will just be stacked, okay? So box 2 is down, box 3, and box 4, box 5. So these by default all have position static. But what if I give the box 2, let's say, actually I will also give box 1, okay? You know what? That's fine. What if I give the position property of the box 1 to relative? So this is second property of position, that is, but position relative. Now again, as you can see, it didn't do anything. To make changes, right, we have to give few CSS property, and that is, let's say I give top. There are 5 things you can give when positioning an element. There is top, bottom, okay, these abbreviations are killing me, and left and right, okay. These are things you can give. And also you can give another thing called z-index, right? These are 5 properties of position. So what happens if I give top? So if I give position relative, it will position itself relative to its original position. So here, the original position of box is this, right? So that is the original position of box 1. So if I give top, let's say 20 pixel, it will position itself 20 pixel from top. So it will go 20 pixel from top, and it will also overlap the box 2, as you can see. If I give 50, text box 2 is completely has completely disappeared because it is box 1 is over box 2. So that is position property. Now you can change it. Let's say you want the box 1 to be under box 2. What you can do is to give z index of 0 or less than the box 2, right? If I do that, or actually percent 0, I can -1, because putting z index 0 didn't work because box 2 already had a z index of 0, because by default z index is 0. If I give position -1, the box 1 will be under box 2. Okay, that's how it works. Box 1 is under box 2, at least appearing under box 2. Now that's how you control it. Okay, for now I'll put position 0. Now that's how you do it. If we go bottom, let's say if you give bottom 80 pixel, it does not work because there is nothing in the bottom that can be, positioned according to. Now if I cut this, right, if I give no bottom, but I do give left. So if I give 50 pixels, if I give 50 pixel left, it will appear left. So yeah, you understood that if you give position relative, it will position itself relative from its original position, right? That is position relative, right? I can also give it position, let's say if I give it, cut the left and give it 50 pixels right, it will position itself 50 pixels right from the original position. So that is position relative. Okay, so here I'm going to give a position of relative, but I'm not going to give it in box 1. Okay, I'm going to give it in our container. Position relative, or any position property, but I have only told you position relative, so I'm giving position relative. I will teach you other position elements just in a bit. So here what I'm going to do is give a position of absolute. This is the third CSS property, or position CSS property, that is position absolute. If we do that, the box 1 basically just positions it absolute to the container div. Now what does that mean? So box 1 here is positioning itself according to the nearest positioned element parent. So here, if we go down here, we have 5 divs, right? As you can see, container is the parent div of all these 5 boxes. Now, when you do position absolute, it will position itself from the nearest positioned HTML element. In this case, we gave position relative, which is again a position property, to our container, which is the parent div of all 5 of these boxes. So here what is basically happening is box 1 is positioning itself absolute from the container. So here box 2 disappeared because box 2 is under box 1. So here, to make box 2 appear, I can give a z index of -1. So box 2 will appear, and now box 1 is under box 2. You can only use z index property to a HTML element if the HTML element is positioned. So if I give a position, let's say position, and let's say I give a position here. Now here, position of the z index. So here, z index of box 1 is -2. If I give anything higher than -1 here, let's say 0. I forgot to make it. Oh, sorry. I thought it was z index. Okay, if I give a position of relative here, and here what I'm going to do is give a z index of, let's say here it was -1, so I'll give it 0. 0 is still higher than -1. It is still appearing. Okay, so it was already on the top. So if I give, let's say -2, box 1 will appear on the top. That's the use case of the index. But I'm not trying to teach you that. Okay, so if I give a position absolute, right, I'm gonna make I'm gonna make sure that box 2 appears. So if I just cut the z-index, it should appear just like that. And just cut that. Okay, the box 1 is appearing on the top. So here, now it will, if I give the top, let's say the top is 20 pixels. As you can see, it is positioning itself and stacking on top of box 2. I give more. As you can see, it is absolute to what? Not box 2, but the container itself, right? Container itself. I can also give a left of, okay, left of let's say 30 pixels, and it will position itself left from the container. Okay, if I give it 0 pixels, it will basically be on the edge of the container. But what if I give again top, now it is on the top, right? It isn't by default. But what if the container div didn't have the position relative, or it was not positioned in any way, sort of form? It will basically position itself with the body tag. So here it is basically positioning itself with the body, right? This is how it works. Okay, if it does not find any positioned element in its parent div or parent HTML element, it will basically position itself with the body tag. Okay, so you have to understand that. Now I'll save that again, and it is positioning itself according to a container. That is position static, position relative, and position absolute. Now we have 2 more position CSS property that we have to learn. Now, next, I'm going to change that so that box 2 can appear. So another thing is I made the boxes really big for a specific reason, right? So here what I'm going to do is with the box 1, I'm going to give a position of fixed, right? So that is the 4th property that we'll learn, that is fixed. So here what's happening is if I do position fixed, it will basically fix itself on the top, right? I also can do with 90% to not 900, 90% so that it is on the top. Now, if we do that, this box 1 right here is basically fixed. So it will not move anywhere even if you scroll the page. So if I'm scrolling the page, it is not moving, as you can see. The box 1 stays right where it wants to. We can also change its position by, again, top. We can also give negative values. Let's say top -1, right? Sorry, -2 pixels. It'll basically stay right there. It'll basically move upwards, right? I also can give a bottom. Let's say bottom. Let's say I want the box 1 to stay bottom. Let's say I give -2 pixels here. It'll basically move to bottom, as you can see. Or let's say bottom 8 pixels. I want the box to be 8 pixels up from the bottom. I can give it like this. If I want it to be centered, I can probably change around. Let's say 500 pixels, 50 pixels. I can just change around. So I'm just gonna like say, there we go. It's almost as is in the center. So as you can see, it does not move from its place. That is the sticky property. I can also give it as the index. You can assume it as a pop-up, right? This is the box 1. You can assume it as a pop-up. So it always has to be above everything else. But to show you guys, I'm just going to give it a z-index of -2. It will disappear because now you can see a small edge. It is under all of these boxes. I'm going to change it like that. So position it like that. There you go. That is box 1, right? Or that is the position fixed element. Now let's change it anything and just give it like that, and also change the width to 100% because when you do fixed, it will position itself all the way to the body, right? So if we do 100%, then it will take perfectly on the edge of the container. So last position property is the position sticky. not static, sticky. There you go. If you scroll down, nothing happens, right? Like position fixed, it would just fix itself. But here, I have to give the position, the box one position where it should be. So if I give top 0, now if we scroll the page, the box will stay at the top, as you can see right here. That is position sticky, right? Now, if I, to give it a better example, I can take this CSS property and put it in, let's say, box 2, saying position, and let's say sticky again, obviously. So here, what I'm essentially doing is I'm going to probably increase the box size. So let's say 2000 pixels. I think it's getting overcrowded. Yep, it's getting overcrowded. And now it's fixed. So here, what I'm essentially doing is, here we have probably give it a little more. Let's say 2500. Yep, I think it's a lot better. So here, what I'm going to do is give the box to position sticky, which I'll already given. And let's say I want it to position itself when we scroll down to box 2. I want it to position itself from the top 0, right? So here, what I'm going to do is scroll down. It will scroll normally. However, when it reaches box 2, it will stay fixed at the top of the box 2 because we have given top 0, right? I can give it, let's say, top 50 pixels. And if we now scroll down, when we reach the top 50 pixels from the box, it will stay fixed on that position. If we again scroll down, it will come to normal. So that is position sticky. Okay. We can again give it a z index, but you already know what's the deal. Z index will basically help in stacking between the boxes of the HTML elements or HTML elements. So that's it for video, guys. If you enjoyed the video and absolutely learned the core concepts of position CSS property, then drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions regarding today's lesson, please leave them down in the comments below. And I know today's lesson was a little bit too longer than the normal sessions, but this was a very important CSS property that we needed to learn to make good websites. So with that said, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the episode 9 of HTML and CSS series. Today we're learning one of the most powerful layout tools in CSS, Flexbox. Flexbox makes it super easy to align things, center things, and build responsive layout designs without going crazy with margins and positions. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, now here we have a HTML boilerplate code as always. What I'm going to do is make a div. Inside this div, I'm going to make 3 boxes. Let's say box, and each will have another class just to pick the colors, right? In the last video, I'm going to do that and change that to 2 and that to 3. Now what we can do is link it with another CSS file. So I haven't taught you, I think, how to link a CSS file to another page, but so what I'm going to do is here, what I'm going to do is do link, and here link style sheet. What I'm going to do is put style.css. So this file, this tag right here is linking our HTML file with the style.css, but we don't have a style.css file, right? So we're going to make a style.css here. So this is our CSS file where we write all of our CSS code. So what I'm going to do is go here and first I'm going to call this container here. And here this container will have a display I'm gonna do is just set this to display flex, but I'll tell you how to use this display flex in a bit. Just give me a minute. And here, this will have a width of 80 pixels, not 80%, and also have a height of let's say 1000 pixels, and also have a border of 2 pixel solid black. There we go. I'm going to increase this by a little bit, let's say 90%. Also give this margin 50 pixels on all sides, making it kind of come to center. I'm going to do 40. Yeah, there you go. So that is our container, right? Now what I do is, so we have to remember that we are linking this. Make sure you remember this, okay? The short form to this is just typing link. You'll see this link and just type in the href. You just type your name of your CSS file. And there you go. With that said, it should be linked. If you remove this entirely, this will not work. Okay, so you have to remember that. Or you can just use a style tag if you're just making a small project. But for big projects, making a separate CSS file is much more cleaner and efficient. So with that said, now let's style our boxes, right? What I do is type boxes here, or add box. So here what I want to do is give our boxes, all of our boxes a width. Let's say the width is 100 pixels. Let's give height 100 pixels. And also give a color of white for the text, but we don't have anything. I'm just going to type box 1, box 2, and box 3. If I do that, it should appear, but it will not. Give me a second. So what I'll do is give a color white. It's not popping up because the color of the text is white, right? Now what I'm going to do is select our box 1. You have to understand that this is one class and this is completely different class, but it is still in the same because we want it to act like a ID, but it's class, right? So here what I'm doing is just typing a background color. Let's say the first one is red. Now you can see it coming up. Let's also give it, let's increase the width actually. I can also do that, I guess. So here what I'm going to do is give a border of 1 pixel solid black. I think it's 2. Is it 5 pixels? Okay. So that's that. Also give a margin top of 5 pixels so it doesn't touch right at the edge, right? What I'm going to do is copy this, paste it 2 times, change this to blue, and change that to green. So here I'm going to change the name just like that, and we should have 3 boxes. Now, with that said, we have that, right? Now let's understand what's display flex or flexbox. So with that said, what I'm going to do is go to our container and cut this display flex. Now if we do that, this will come in a straight line because we have stacked them, right? This is in position static. As I told in last video, by default the position of the boxes are static. Now what I'll do is, now I'm going to do display flex. Now if I do that, all the boxes will come in a straight line, or it will shift to x-axis, right? Now this is what display flex does. Now you can also change it by using another property called flex direction. Now by default it's row. So if you do that, as you can see, it's just row, because by default if you do display flex, the flex direction is row. So it is arranged in x-axis. Now you can give another saying column. Now if you do that, it will move the flex direction to column, or you can just change this, okay? This is how we do it. Now another property, right? I'm gonna put it to display row again, like this. Now if you want to center all 3 of these boxes, what you can do is give justify content center. So justify content is something that only works in x-axis. So if you do justify content center, it will center all of those three boxes because we have three boxes inside this container which we are styling. So it will basically center all of the HTML tags or containers that are inside that div, right? If we do that, this will come to exactly in center, as you can see. So that is what justify content center does. I'm going to change this to around 500. So that is justify content center. Now, another thing you can do is give align items. So we have learned how to like center items in the x-axis. What if you want to do in the y-axis, right? I will close this. It will come to normal, right? Now there's another property which only works for y-axis or the down axis, that is align items. Align items is basically justify content, but it's only for y-axis. If I do align item center, it will center itself in the y-axis, just like that. That is how it works. Now, if I wanted to put all three of these boxes exactly in this container, what I would do is align item center and justify content center, and it will be completely on the middle. That is what align item center and justify content center do. Now, if you close that, now other properties of justify content is space around, space between, and space evenly. If you do space around, it will basically put all three of these boxes on the y-axis equally. It will just spread equally, also giving a margin on the left and right, right? And if I do space evenly, it will basically have equal spaces in the margin and gaps, right? It will basically have equal spaces also with margin. The evenly and around can look similar, but around has a little less border in the margin side, a little less margin. That is space around and space evenly. So space between basically spaces it equally without having any margin. As you can see, it will just space it equally between the boxes, but not give any margin at the left and the right hand side. Okay, that is justify content space evenly, space around, and space between. Another property of justify content is the flex end and flex start. If we do flex start, all of these boxes will basically stick to the start like this, right? If you do flex end, it will go to all the way at the end, right? Now this you can also do with align items. If you do align items, and it will basically be at the same flex end flex start, because that's by default, right? If you do flex start here, nothing will happen because again it's already at the start. But if we do flex end, it will go to end at the y-axis. That is what it does. But what if you want to give your own spaces between, or your own specific pixel spaces between boxes? To do that, you can use a property in Flex called gap. Now you can give gap of, let's say, 20 pixels, and it will have a 20 pixel gap between box 1, box 2, and box 3. Okay, you can also do that. Or you can also give, let's say, space, justify content space around. And you want more space, you can also give gap with, let's say, 50 pixels. If you do that, basically what happens is increases the gap between the boxes while also maintaining the equal spaces between the boxes. Now, next thing I want to teach you guys is the flex wrap. So if I just close everything here and make it a normal, and if I literally, let's say, make some few more content like this. Now, by default, flex wrap property is set to no wrap, right? If I do flex wrap and set it to no wrap, this is the by default property of the flex wrap, right? If I do flex wrap wrap, now what happens is now all of the boxes do not keep or just stack in the one line. It comes down if there is no space. Now that's what flex wrap does. Now if we do flex wrap, a new property is unlocked, that is align content. If we do align content, right, now the value that goes into align content is basically the same as justify content. We can do flex start, it will just, put everything to start, or we can do flex end. We can also do, let's say, center to put everything in center. We can also do space between, space around, space evenly. You get it, right? You can do space evenly like this, or space around. That is flex wrap. Okay. So next thing I want to teach you guys is let's first cut all of these and make it only 3. Now next thing I want to teach you guys is the flex grow. Now in the box, which is our individual boxes, right? What I can give is to box 1, I can give a flex grow of 1. Now if I do that, as you can see, what happens is box 1 will take the remaining spaces that is empty in the actual container, right? If we, let's say, comment this part out, this space right here was basically empty and it was not taken by anything, right? If you do flex grow, it will grow the actual container, which is the grow applied to, right? It will basically take the remaining space in the web page. If we do flex grow, as you can see, it takes that much. You can also put flex grow in all 3 of these, or you can just straight up keep here if you want to apply all 3 of these here, and it will take even spaces and cover the entire line to itself by having equal spaces. This is one thing you can do, right? Now another is flex shrink. If we do flex shrink, and let's say I put flex shrink to, let's say, to box 1, and give a property to flex shrink, let's say 5, what happens is, let's say if I make this small gap, box 1, it will shrink faster than box 2, as you can see. Now I can also give, let's say, what happened is I can give the flex shrink to, let's say, 5 or 4, any value, to the actual box, and also give a flex grow of 1. Now if I try to do it, as you can see, it is kind of responsive, right? It is flexing and shrinking it. Now this property is really used to make responsive designs in the nav bars and other stuff. So it is very important property. Now the last property I want to teach you guys is flex basis. Let's say that box 1 has the flex basis. What happens if you apply flex basis is all of these containers have a width of 100 pixels and height 100 pixels. I can override that by using flex basis. Let's say I want to pump it down to 300 pixels. I can do that. Okay, it basically overrides the width of the boxes, but it generally is never used except in the few exceptions. So yeah, but it is still important to mention. But instead of using flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis, there is a combined property that is flex. Okay, there is one property that's flexed, and if we apply that, let's say flex 1, it will basically apply the flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. You don't have to type flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. It will intelligently apply the flex shrink, flex grow, and flex basis onto your web page. And that's it for today's video, guys. And that was one of the most powerful layout tools in CSS, Flexbox. If you learned something new and if you want to try this Flexbox or new harnessed property in your CSS styling, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want interactive programming courses, check out coding.com in the link in the description down below. And with that said, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So this is our 10th episode of our HTML and CSS series. So to celebrate, we'll be doing our very first project in HTML and CSS. For this project, we'll be making a music player app in HTML and CSS. We'll not be using JavaScript because this is not a JavaScript series. If you want to check out JavaScript series, the link will be in the video description. So with that said, let's get started. So, before we get started, I want to warn you with few stuff. Up until now, we haven't learned icons, right? But in this video, we'll be using icons too. So, to get icons, what you want to do is go to fontawesome.com. Link will be in the video description if you guys want, don't worry. Here, what you want to do is sign in, okay? After what you want to do is sign in, or if you don't have an account, just click on sign up and get started down here and just type your email here. Once you sign in, you'll see a big tab on the nav bar saying your kits, right? Click on that, and if it lets you to, like, let's say a tutorial or something setup wise, just click next bunch of times and you should be good. After that, click on setup icons in your project with one line of code. Click on that, and it will give you a HTML script tag just like that. Just copy the script tag and you're good to go. This will let us use icons from the font awesome. Now for the icons, there are a lot of icons in this website, right? But a lot of them are paid, so you cannot use all of them. So you have to go to your free tab and you can use all of these icons. Okay, with that said, let's get started with the actual project. I'll minimize this, or I can just put it like this and we should be good. So with that said, let's make a index.html file like always, and we'll get started with our code, right? And make a boilerplate right here. I'm also gonna make a style.css because this will be the file that we'll use to write our CSS code. So after that, we'll do that. And the thing that we copied, just paste it on the head tag, just like that. And I'll show you how the icons are used. Icons are basically text. It acts like text. You can add all of the text properties in CSS to icon, like font size, probably font weight and font color or color, you know, all that stuff. I'm just gonna link my style.css just like that and press go live. Okay, and I'm gonna save the document. I'm gonna change it to music player. Okay, with that said, we are ready to write our HTML code, not CSS. Now, I'm gonna make a div, right? Which will have a class. You can also type dot player container. This will make a div with a class of player container. You can also do div dot. When you do div, it will make a div, and when you press dot, it will give a class to the HTML element saying if you type div dot container or whatever, it will make a div with that specific class. So I'll make another div here that says album art. It will basically be a album of art, you know, like a bunch of pictures, you see, and just like that. Inside this, what I'm going to do, this will be just a picture. We'll start it using CSS just in a bit, don't worry. I'll make a div called song info. Inside this, I'm going to make two divs. So this will be song title. The first one will be song title, and this will have, I'm just going to give a random name, Ocean Dreams, I guess. And also have another div that says artist name, and this will have a sunset wave. These are basically just dummy names that should appear in our HTML code just like that. After this, what I'm going to do is make another div that says progress section. And I'm going to make another div saying progress bar. This will basically be the progress bar of how long the actual song is, and we'll start it using CSS, so don't worry. I'm also going to make another div saying progress field. Now, in terms of actual website building, you are not supposed to do this, making a lot of divs, but we haven't learned semantic coding yet, so we don't have a clear understanding of what semantics. If you're thinking what is semantics, if you don't get it, it's okay, because we haven't discussed what is semantic coding, right? After that, I'm going to make another div saying progress dot. This will be the actual dot of how long or how much the song has finished, right? After all of this, I'm going to save that and it should be done. Now, after the progress bar div, We're gonna make another div saying time info, just like that. Inside, I'm gonna make 2 span tag. And if you want to make bunch of HTML element at once, what you can do is type span times 2. It will make 2 span tags, just like that, as you can see. And inside this, I'm just gonna type 1, 2, 3. This is the actual song completion, and the total length of the song, let's just say 3 minutes and 45 seconds. It's just a random guess. After that, that should be done. Now next is controls. So what I do is make a div saying controls. They're basically the controls of like shuffle all or like next song or pause, you know, those buttons. So for that, what I'm gonna do is make a button with a class of control button, just like that. Inside this button, I'm gonna use a icon. So to use icon, what you wanna do is either you can come here and just go here. Let's say I want this file icon, just like that, and I can just copy this and paste it right here, and it will show in my HTML web page, as you can see. But for now, we can also, for changing the icon, right, to if you want to change this icon, what you want to do is just change, usually you just change the FA file. But here, what I'm going to do is type a class. So the class is the actual icon, right? What I'm going to do is type fa-step backward. So that is the code or class for icon, like going backward, right? So you can also search it up here. If you don't get saying, you can just type on like music and get bunch of icons related to music, as you can see. You can also type backward and it should be there. There we go. There we go. You get a bunch of icons, so you can change it and you can just copy and paste it into your web page if you want. So after that, what I'm going to do is also make another button. So I'm just going to copy paste this. So this will be control button with also having another class saying play button. And I'm going to change this to play. And I should change that. There we go. So at last, I'm going to make one last button. I'm just going to copy paste that. And instead of backward, I'm just going to put it forward. There we go. And with that said, we should be good. Now after controls div is the volume section. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to make a div called volume section. Inside this, what I'm going to do is type additional controls. So this will be the additional control icons or buttons you can control. Okay. So I'm just gonna copy paste this again. It's basically the same thing. What I'm gonna do is call this the shuffle button. So this will be the shuffle icon or shuffle button. I'm gonna hit random. You do that. This is not the code. Now it should appear. There we go. The shuffle button. I'm just gonna format the document really quick, just like that. I'm going to paste it 4 more times because we have 4 buttons. Now, next one is repeat. If you want to repeat the song, right? You also need a button for that. Am I right? Yes, sir. I'm going to type the redo button, as you can see. So that's restart or redo. Now, next is heard. If you want to favorite a song, you also need some kind of button to actually make it or put it into your favorite album, right? So we'll use the heart icon for that. Now next is, and the last thing is playlist. So there will be playlist button, which if you want to add the song to your playlist, you should be able to do it with this button. Technically you cannot because it's just CSS and it's all design. But once you add JavaScript, you should be good. And here I'm just gonna type list. There we go. Now at last is the volume control. So this will basically be a technically imaginary slider because it's imaginary because again we're not making any JavaScript to it, right? This will basically be a slider to you can change your volume. So here what I'm going to do is make a div saying volume control, just like that. Inside this, I'm going to make a span tag with a class of volume icon. And inside this, I'm going to add a icon. This will be a icon of volume up. So I'm just going to type volume, volume up, and it should load like that. There we go. Now after this span tag, or under this span tag, I'm just going to make a div of volume bar. So this will essentially be our volume bar. Inside this div, I'm going to make another div of volume fill, just like that. And inside that div, I'm going to make a volume dot. So I'm going to just make a volume dot. With that said, our HTML code is done. Now let's move to CSS and let's start to style this bad boy. Here we go. Let's start. Now first we'll select all. So we use the asterisk to select everything, right? Here what I'm going to do is give a margin of 0, so nothing sticks, and also padding 0, and give a box sizing of border box. There we go. Inside what I'm going to do is give a body. Here we'll just be using all of our things that we have learned. Here what I'm going to do is give a font family. This will basically choose what font we will use. And here we'll basically be using Arial and Sans Serif. Just like that. There we go. We changed the font. Now we'll give a background. This will basically be the background color. Here what I'm going to do is give a hex color. So there are 3 ways you can give color in CSS. The first one is just saying what you want. Let's say red, blue, and then everything, right? Another way is giving hex color. So it is 6-digit code which you can give colors. So I'm going to give a 4A90E2. Now, how will you know, or how will you get this, right? You can go here and say color palette. And you can go to color hunt, or a bunch of websites. There are a bunch of websites you can get color palettes from. And there are a bunch of websites or a bunch of things that you can use for your colors. Let's say there we go. For this color, the next color is this one. So if I click on that, there will be a bunch of colors. And another thing you can do, and also give the colors using RGB. So I'm going to copy this and also give that. If you paste that and add an A, just like that. With that said, it should work. So there are 3 ways of putting colors. So I'm going to do is just put my old way using hex colors because it's easier and kind of short. Now next is height. What I'm going to do is give a height of 100%. This will basically cover the entire web page. According to height, this will cover the entire web page. Now, another thing I'm going to give is display flex. And after that, I'm going to give justify content to center to put everything here in center, and also give align items to center. So that will come to center just like that. After that, what I'm going to do is give a player container. So this is essentially our container that we actually used. We go here, and there we go. This is the container we are styling right now. I'm going to give a width of 400 pixels. So this is essentially the actual width of this container right there. Also give a background of white. So for that, what I can do is just put white and we should be good. Now other is border radius. Now border radius, I'm going to give 20 pixels. This will basically make our corners kind of rounded. And also give a padding. Also give a padding of 30 pixels. There we go. And after that is the album art, which is this div right here. What I'm going to do is, now since our album art div is the actual picture or image of our cover of our song, I'm going to give a width of 100%. It will basically take the width of entire thing until this container ends, right? I'm also going to give a height of 300 pixels, just like that. I'm going to give a background. So in background, I'm going to give a URL to give a URL. This will basically be an image background. So this will be the background of an image. To keep an image, what you can do is give background, type URL, and give the URL of the image. So I have a URL right here, which I can use. I'm gonna paste that here. And that said, the image should pop up. So what's happening here is we are not using an image tag, okay? We are basically making a div and giving it height and width. So, and giving a background, just like we give background color, we're basically giving, instead of color, we are giving an image as a background, right? Just simple as that. I'm also going to give a border radius of 15 pixels, just like that. And also make this a flexbox. Also give a justified content center, and also give a line item center. Also give a color of white, and after that I'm going to give a font size of 48 pixels. And also going to give a margin of bottom 20 pixels. There we go. After that is the song info. I'm going to give is song info. I'm going to do text align. I'm going to make it center to put everything here in center. Let's give a margin bottom like that. I'm going to give a margin bottom. I'm going to scroll down so you guys can see of 30 pixels. There we go. After that is the song title. Just like that, what I'm going to do is give a font size of 24 pixels. So this is basically the song title right here. And also give a font weight of bold to, because it's titled, it's supposed to be bold, And also give a color. So I'm going to give it black, but it's already black, so it should be fine. Now next is margin. I'm going to give a margin bottom of 5 pixels. So shift 5 pixels down. Not down, it will make the other thing shift 5 pixels down because we're giving margin bottom, right? So here next is artist name. So it is supposedly this text right here. What I'm going to do is give artist name. I'm going to select that class from this CSS selector and give a font size of 16 pixels. Also give a color of, let's say, gray. There we go. Looks cool. If I can give it dark gray, that will be good. I don't see any difference. It's fine. Now next is the progress section. What I'm going to do is progress and do progress section. Here we're going to give a margin bottom of 30 pixels. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is style the progress bar, right? What I'm going to do is give a width of 100 pixels, right? Give a height. I'm going to scroll down again. And give a height of 6 pixels, just like that. And also give a background color of a specific hex code that is E0, E0, E0. It's kind of a tintish gray color. Now next is border radius. I'm going to give 3 pixels. Also give a margin bottom of 10 pixels, right? And I'm just going to give a position of relative. So this will be positioned relative to its original position. After that, I'm going to do is do progress fill. So this is basically the actual fill bar, you see. So what I'm going to do is do width. I'm going to make it 140 pixels, just like that. And height, what I'm going to do is give 100%, so that you can take every entire height to itself. I'm going to give a background of kind of a blue, so this will be 489082. This is basically color code for blue color. So as you can see, you already can see the actual progress bar getting made. Also give a border radius for this, same as that, so this will be 3 pixels. Also give a position relative to it, so it can stay relative to its original position. Now next is progress dot. So this will be the dot that will sit right over there saying how long the actual song has finished. I'm gonna do is make a width. I'm gonna give a width of 14 pixels and give a height of 14 pixels because it will be a square, and it will have a background color of FF 6 times F. There you go. This will basically be a white color. I'm gonna give a border radius of 50% and position it absolute and give a right of -7 pixels. I'm gonna show you guys. So what I'm gonna do is position it just like that. I'm gonna make position relative. I rewrote it because I want to show you every process of the getting make. Right now, while doing position absolute, what is happening is it is getting relative to these bars right here, right? These bars right here. So right now, the actual progress bar is just at the left-hand side corner of the thing. What I'm gonna do is give a right attribute of -7 pixels. It will come right at the end, as you can see. Now what I'm gonna do is also shift from the top and give my -4 pixels, and it will be right over there, and it's perfect. There we go. Now next is .time info. What I do display flex and justify content. Since this has to be, one has to be right here and another has to be right here, what I do is type space between. There we go, and it's done. It's gonna give a color of this will be a gray color like that, and also give a font size of, let's say, 14 pixels. There we go. I'm also gonna put this container right here. What I'm gonna do is give 500 pixels height. I guess 1000 pixels. There we go. So it's kind of at the center, but 500 pixels. There we go. Now it's kind of at the center. So I also want to give. There we go. Now it's at the center. So with that said, now next is the controls. We're almost done with the actual project. I'm going to make it display Flexbox. And also give a justify content of center, align items. And give align items center just like that. And also give a gap of 20 pixels. And it'll be just like that. So this is at the center while having a flex box. It's aligned items also center by the y-axis, and also give a gap of 20 pixels each, which is this gap right there. Now next is styling those buttons, right? What I'm going to do is type control button and give a width of 60 pixels. Also give a height of 60 pixels. It's actually big and not tiny just like that. I'm going to get a background of this same blue color to meet our aesthetics. Now next is color. So I'm going to give is color. I'm going to give this white color. So our icons, as you can see, what I said is icons act like a text. So when I give color white, the icons became white. So you can actually treat icons as text if you want to style them. If you are getting confused, just understand them as text and you should be good. Now after that, what I'm going to do is also give a border of none because we don't want any border. Also give a border radius. Now since I want them to be perfect circle, I'm going to give a border radius of 50%. And I will make them circle. Now font size I'm going to give is 20 pixels. Again, as I said, icons act like a text. If I give font 20 pixels, as you can see, the icons increased in size. So as you know, so with that said, you should know that they act like a text. After that, what I'm going to do is do display flex and also give justify content center and align item center, so they can be centered in this container right here. There we go. After that, I'm going to give a cursor a pointer. What this does is when you go and hover around this icon or button, it will make the cursor go pointer. It will change the cursor. If I comment this part out, as you can see, nothing happens. When I uncomment, there we go. It changed the cursor when hovering over that specific button. There we go. Now next is play button, right? Now the play button, what I'm going to do is make it a little bit bigger because I gave two classes to this play button right here. If you can see, I'm going to show you. One is control button, which will have the mutual CSS property, and the play button, which acts like another ID because it's another class, specifically for this button right here. What I'm going to do is give a width of 80 pixels. Also give a height of 80 pixels. So basically be a little bigger than the normal buttons because, you know, play buttons are usually bigger in a music player. So I kind of wanted to simulate that. And also give a background color. So here what I'm going to do is give a different background color, like in comparison to these two right here. This will basically have a kind of a black. So this will basically, I'll just put it a black color. But it's not completely black. If I do black, it will change the color, but it's not completely black. Right? It has a kind of a grayish tint, but not perfectly black. And also give a font size of 24 pixels to make the icon a little bit bigger. There we go. Now after that is the shuffle button, right? So these all of these buttons. What I'm going to do is call the shuffle button class. I'm going to give all of these the same property, but what I'm going to do is, since I'm going to style all of these to same class or same CSS property, what I'm going to do is give them the same class. So here what I'm going to do is just give, I'm going to just put button. So I'm just going to change it to just button, straight up that. I'm going to call this button, and here what I'm going to do is give a width of 40 pixels, height of 40 pixels. With that, the button should look a little bit bigger, just like that. There we go. Now next is background. Now for the background, I'm just going to give the same background color to fit our aesthetic. I'm going to put color I'm going to put it white, so the icons will be white just like that. Now next is font size. Since the icons are a little bit smaller, I'm going to change their size using font size attribute. There we go. They are a little bit bigger. Next is border radius. Since it has to be a perfect circle, I'm going to give the border radius to about 50% to make it a perfect circle. Just like that. Now I'm going to put the border none because border is kind of ugly there. There we go. Now I only need to align them. What I'm going to do is put display to flex. I'm going to do align item center, and most likely, and what I'm going to do is justify content center. Now next what I'm going to do is call the additional button additional controls, because this is aligned at the stacked wise. What I'm going to do is put additional controls here and put a display flex just like that. And also gonna do with that said, it should come in row just like that. Justify content, I'm gonna do center, so it comes at the center. Gap between these buttons, I'm gonna put a 15 pixel gap. I also give a margin bottom of 20 pixels, just like that. I'm also gonna give a margin top of 20 pixels. There we go, just like that. Now next is the volume section. I'm also going to give a little bit more. There we go. Now next is volume control, or like the volume div. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the volume icon first, which is this icon right over here. What I'm going to do is I'm just basically making another progress bar, this time for the volume, right? Here, what I'm going to do is put the font size to 18 pixels, so it's a little bit bigger. I also have a color of this, which is kind of gray, as I said. So next is, I'm going to scroll down. Next is volume bar. Volume bar, just like that. Now width of the volume bar will be 280 pixels. And the height will be 4 pixels. Also going to give a background of this right here. This is kind of a white, but a gray. It's not white, it's gray. I'm going to give a border radius of around 2 pixels and also give a position relative. There we go. Now next is volume fill. What I'm going to do is give volume fill. I'm going to do width. I'm going to do 160 pixels. I'm also going to give a height of 100% while giving a background of the same, just like that. You already can see the actual progress bar. I'm also going to give a border radius as same as that, which is 2 pixels. 2 pixels. I'm also going to give a position of relative. Now next is volume dot. This is basically the dot, which basically says our progress, you know. Next is volume dot. Now width, I'm going to give it a 12 pixels. I'm going to give a height of 12 pixels. Next is background. I'm going to give it a white color, just like that. You can already see this right over there. I'm going to give a border radius of 50%, making it a perfect circle. Also going to give a position of absolute, because we want to put it absolute. I'm going to give a right of -6 pixels, so it moves right there. I'm going to give it top of -4 pixels. With that said, it should be fine. Now I see the actual, like the volume icon and this progress bar being up and down, like in stacking. What I'm also going to do is come right up there. Since this is the actual div, I'm going to make this volume or volume control div a Flexbox using volume control. I'm hoping that's the actual, yeah, there you go. I'm going to do display flex, and I will be right up there. I'm going to put, I'm going to put justify content center and make align items center, just like that. And also have a gap of 12 pixels. Now with that said, our project is finished. This was the first project that we did with HTML and CSS. If you want the code to this project, it will be in the description down below. If you want to check it out, you can check it out. I'll give a link of our coding labs if you want. There will be a link to coding labs where you can find this code. Okay, you can also run this code and modify it to your liking in that compiler. If you want, check it out. Link will be in the video description. You can also check our coding.com and coding labs if you want. If you guys want interactive coding courses, you can check out coding.com again. And with that said, I'll see you guys in another video. This was a very fun project that we did in the episode 10 of HTML and CSS series. And I'll catch you guys in another video. Bye bye.